And I call to order the public hearing for bylaw 1053-25, which is a land use bylaw amendment. The procedure that we will follow is we'll call upon Logan Bartholow, our planning consultant, to provide a summary of the proposed bylaw. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to speak should they wish. And then any members of the public that wish to speak for the bylaw will be called upon. And then the hearing will be closed. So, council, you are free to ask questions, but there will be no debate. What are you looking for?
We're just trying to find the bylaw in our package. Got it.
It was in, okay.
It was in a separate email? Oh, okay. Sorry, Josh.
So administration, could you please present the bylaw and provide any relevant background?
Through your worship, I'll turn the floor over to Logan.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So as the Mayor mentioned, this public hearing is related to bylaw 1053-25, which is a proposed bylaw to amend the current land use bylaw and establish a direct control district and the rules for that direct control district. The purpose of the direct control bylaw is to allow development of housing within the associated parcel, which is designed to accommodate up to 27 dwelling units on notational lots as provided for in the proposed Moose Meadows Phase 1 outline plan. And the reason we're going with a proposed direct control bylaw over one of our standard land use districts is that the applicant is wishing to retain full ownership of the property and above and underground infrastructure on the property, and isn't intending on subdividing the property in a typical way. This is not super standard in our community, but isn't necessarily rare for affordable or social type housing, and has been done in other municipalities. Our standard land use districts aren't designed to be able to accommodate developments of multiple single family units. And so a direct control bylaw allows us to build customer rules to facilitate the proposed development and make sure that setbacks and distances are all being adhered to. The buildings will be primarily modular single family units, and previous versions of the outline plan that were advertised to the public included wording that the units would be second stage recovery housing for those escaping gender-based violence, as well as for individuals dealing with addictions. But at the recent committee of the whole meeting, the applicant clarified and explained that this was included in error, and that the units would not be a second stage recovery housing in the formal sense, but would instead be transitional housing more generally for women and families coming out of emergency shelters or other challenging situations. And the related outline plan has since been amended and included in the council agenda package for tonight. So to meet our statutory obligations, as well as the requirements of our land use bylaw, ahead of this public hearing, administration also advertised the proposed bylaw and rezoning application in several different ways, including through the town's social media, the newspaper, and mail-outs to all residents within 100 meters of the property. And through this, administration did not receive any comments or questions from the public. So should council have any further questions, the applicant is also attending this meeting and can hopefully provide some more clarification if council or the public requires it. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions of direct consultant? Do you have one?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
Logan, so with the amendments that were made in the package that I have here in front of me, it's still stating that it's accommodations for vulnerable Indigenous people facing gender-based violence and others recovering from addiction. So is this still addictions recovery? So this is still an older package that I have here? Okay.
Yeah, potentially in the public hearing portion, the incorrect one may have been included, but in the council package, that should definitely have the correct one. I can't remember which item it is, but that should have the correct version.
I had the correct ones. Today? Okay. Council, check your package. Okay, do you like to come and speak to? Just give your name to the municipal secretary, please, and your title.
My name is Jordan Nasels. I'm the CEO for Enday. So as we spoke about last week, those information that was in your original package was there by error. Like I had said, that this project has kind of shuffled hands, about 3 or 4 different project managers, and kind of now fallen back into my lap. And so I was one of the original people part of this committee to kind of bring this forward. And then I left the nation and came back, and then this has come back to me now. And since that time, that though there were some changes or conversations that were probably had that don't fit the scheme of the funding that we've received to kind of go forward with this project. Like I said last week, like these units are only temporary transitional units for women and like family coming out of the women's shelter who are deemed to be low risks, who don't need 24-hour care. But would benefit from having aftercare services that would be provided by the staff at the women's shelter.
So, I don't know what you were sent, but my package states differently. Yeah, sorry. So, I had a question. Go ahead.
I know there's, this confusion around like what type of clientele situations, will be housed. I feel you're sticking to your funding stream, which states exactly what you're saying now. Mm-hmm. In the end, I think it's all about security and well-being for everybody. If there's, pardon me? Well, I'm getting to my question. If there's security issues, like, does part of that funding also include like ongoing assessment for security concerns? Because I could see a client being deemed ready, and then maybe that not be the case, or maybe outside or external factors deem that not the case because, there may be, individuals that, speaking as diplomatically as I can, like individuals that would approach, vulnerable individuals, that, were maybe part of the reason that they needed help in the first place. I know that being, it could be a housing unit there, it could be a housing unit in town anywhere, it could be a housing unit in, like wherever, a lot of times security issues would fall on either the RCMP or bylaw, but in terms of a proactive approach and within the funding stream and grants that you're getting, is there like a proactive, almost like security check-in for the individuals to maybe divert or avert problem situations before they, really, require, say, RCMP involvement or something like that?
Yeah, so anybody who's, accesses those transition units would be subject or have access to daily aftercare services. And so the idea is that the service is a wraparound service, and so that person would be continuing to work with anybody in those units to be able to find permanent housing, employment, access additional services within the municipality or even through Deneva to make sure that they get, the best opportunity to kind of move forward from, why they're there.
And then opportunity and follow up if they were to
and
contact the program and say, like there's some troubling circumstances here.
There's always a, opportunity to come back. Like it's not a linear process, and like
right.
most treatment programs, it is a bit secular. And so if they had to go back, then there's more than opportunity for that.
And those services would apply for the complete duration of someone being in these transitional homes anyways. These aren't really gonna be permanent homes for individuals in any nature. It's just part of that transitionary
Yeah,
process.
and so it's, like I said last week, it'd be, in the event that they decided not to move back home for whatever reason, that may be like the situation, they can't, then they have an alternate place to go, rather than being forced to go back to a situation where
Right.
they left. Now they have an option to not do that, and then get additional services here.
Okay, thank you.
What is the period for transitional normally? I know there's different situations.
I mean, I don't envision it being too long, depending, I guess, on what the nature of the housing market is here in High Level, if that's where they choose to stay. Right now, I would say probably 6 to 9 months waiting period, like that's what we see for our rental units that we currently have. But we would be then looking to move them into like even our units or Boreal Housing, one or the other, right? So most transitional programs that I've been a part of usually do like 3 months, 6 month, 9 month benchmarks, and then we want to see, you know, fully transition within a year without services. That being said, you know, there is no hard line for a transition, and people will take as long as they need to kind of move to the next level. Like we don't want to force people out because
Yeah.
there's some deadline we've set.
Is there any other questions of Jordan? Thank you, Jordan. So, do we have any members of the public that want to speak in favor of the bylaw change? I'll call again, members wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw change. And a third call. Seeing none, I will take comments or questions of those that are not in favor of the bylaw. Second call for those not in favor of the bylaw. And third call. So were there any submissions electronically? None? Okay, hearing no further submissions, I now declare the public hearing bylaw 105-325 closed. Council, we will now consider the bylaw during the regular portion of our meeting. Thank you. Thank you. So now we'll reconvene into an open meeting with the adoption of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda? There is an addition of 10.1, the CAO report. Is there anything else? Could I have someone move the agenda then, please? Councillor Lambert? Yes?
Through your worship, we have another public hearing this evening for the remaining 2 bylaws. So that's why we have a motion to recess into another public hearing.
Okay. Which one is that?
Through your worship, I will turn this over to Logan, our planning consultant.
I know, but I don't know here.
Thank you. So the second public hearing is related to bylaw 1051-25 and 1052-25. And that's related to the proposed land use bylaw change and municipal development plan amendment.
Okay. Do you want to explain this bylaw, please, Logan?
Yes, I can. Have we recessed into a public hearing?
Yes.
Through your worship, I need a motion to recess, please.
Could I have a motion to recess into another public hearing, please? Counselor Lebrion, I'm all flustered now because I don't have this in front of me. All in favor? Carried. So once again, format of this public hearing will be administration speaking, then those for the bylaw, those against the bylaw, and any written submissions. So could we please have Director give information on the bylaw?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have a presentation related to this. I'm hoping that can be pulled up on screen and shared virtually. And then while that is happening, I can introduce this. So there are two bylaws that have been proposed to Council. So bylaws 1051-25 and 1052-25. And these bylaws together are designed to make housing easier to build through reducing red tape and increasing flexibility in the type of housing that may be built in the various residential and commercial land use districts across the town of High Level. So once that presentation is up, I can run through some of the overarching changes. There were quite a few, and because of that, we included a red line version in Council's package to show the exact changes that were being proposed throughout the bylaw, things that were being removed, things that were being added, things that might have been just reworded slightly to improve clarity. This is also related to the Housing Accelerator Fund, where as part of the action plan, the town committed to several initiatives, two of which included reducing red tape and increasing flexibility in our bylaws and policies, which is what these two bylaws are intending to do. So like I mentioned, the guiding principles of these bylaw amendments were to create less restrictive zoning for housing, create more housing options that people could build across the town, simplify some language and regulations so that developers and the public could more easily understand the regulations guiding their properties, and create some increased flexibility on parking requirements and improve the opportunity for gentle density. So if we could go to the next slide. To start off, generally speaking, we looked at the definitions first to see what was confusing, what did we want to change from our experience approving developments and regulating them, what were the things that were kind of a hitch that held the process up. So with that, we also looked at other municipalities that have recently gone through a similar process and tried to model what they found as best practices. These included changing of definitions for accessory buildings to really clarify that accessory buildings aren't dwelling units and secondary suites and backyard units are just a very special form of accessory buildings. Basement area, floor area, gross, garage, ground floor, party wall, all of these are things that when developers or the public come, they may have a very different definition to what the formal definition is of the town. And so what we've tried to do is improve the language so that it's more easily understandable by someone that may not be working in planning and development. Next slide. Next, we began looking at the different dwelling type definitions and similarly trying to see what other municipalities were doing, looking at our own definitions and seeing where the challenges were in interpreting them. And with that, one large change was to remove the definition of dwelling unit apartment and instead just expand dwelling multiple unit. And so a dwelling multiple unit can now be anything from 3 units all the way up to a very large apartment building. And what this allows us to do is then regulate the number of units within the land use district by setting density maximums and unit maximums per lot. So for example, in the R1 district, you can build a dwelling multiple unit on a corner lot, but you can only have it up to 4 units. Whereas in the high density residential, there isn't a unit cap. It's more, comes down to setbacks, building height, and other things like that that would ultimately set the number of units on any one property that could be built. We also, in our reading of manufactured home, tiny home, and the definition and the way that it was being used, it was somewhat being used as both a backyard unit style development as well as a tiny home in the traditional sense. So what we did is clarify that. So now tiny homes are their actual own thing. Backyard units are also their own thing. Next slide, please. Secondary suites, we ended up finding that we needed some additional language to actually regulate these properly and make sure that if someone is building a secondary suite, that they're doing it in a way that is appropriate to the surrounding context while also being someplace that someone would actually enjoy living in and thrive while living in. And we also increased the land use districts that secondary suites would be permitted. Next page, or slide, please. In backyard units, some municipalities govern secondary suites and backyard units the same. Some create different definitions. We found it useful to separate out backyard units and secondary suites, so they are their own things with their own set of definitions and regulations. They're similar in some regards, but can be quite different because they're detached from the principal building, whereas secondary suites are always attached to the principal building. Next page. Then we added in a definition for residential mixed-use buildings because the current land use bylaw does not have a definition for residential mixed-use buildings. There are some ways that the bylaw has tried to regulate this, but we are finding that the definitions and the way that the bylaw was currently doing it was incredibly complex and sometimes contradicted itself throughout the document, and then raised questions as to whether we could actually approve a mixed-use building or not in the downtown commercial and highway commercial land use districts. And we also made this a discretionary use in the community land use district, just to allow flexibility for additional housing on more institutional, educational type developments. And there were a few things that we added in here to make sure that the downtown didn't just become a whole bunch of apartment buildings. So some of those regulations are that commercial units can't be above dwelling units, so it has to be the other way. You have to have commercial on the bottom, residential above if you want to do a mixed-use building. There can't be dwelling units in a basement, because typically commercial units don't have basements designed for residential use. And then dwelling units can't face an arterial road, so that would be 100th Ave is what we consider an arterial road. And what that does is it preserves street frontage for commercial units. And then we require separate access from the residential and non-residential units. Next slide. Parking has, I would say, been probably the largest challenge for the town regulating development. It's very complex for the public and developers to understand how much parking they need to include, how it needs to be included, the configuration, and is, aside from incomplete applications, is the #1 thing that leads to development permit application delays, just due to the sheer amount of regulations and the different definitions of uses that need different parking requirements. So what we tried to do is really consolidate the number of categories for parking, and we ended up going from 32 different categories of parking down to 6. And we changed some of the minimums as well to increase that flexibility for lots that might be really tight, that might not be able to fit as much parking as what the previous land use bylaw was requiring, but still requiring them to include some parking. And a lot of this is modeled off of some of the other municipalities that have gone through this process, both very large ones as well as very similarly sized municipalities to the town of High Level. And so what we did is we didn't remove parking requirements, we just reduced them, But what this allows developers to do is still exceed them if they feel that it's necessary for their project and for their customers and for the vitality of their business. We also decrease parking stall dimension minimums ever so slightly. When reviewing our parking dimensions to every other municipality we were looking at, ours were over and above all of them in size. And with the way that vehicles are being designed and access and the way that we regulate parking, we were finding that we could decrease it. And so we decreased it from 3.1 meters wide to 2.8 meters wide. And this is still wider than what Edmonton, Lethbridge, and Red Deer require for parking stalls. They go as small as 2.4 meters wide, if I'm remembering correctly. Next slide. Now we'll get into the changes for the different residential districts. So the R1 land use district, in alignment with our Housing Accelerator Fund application, the largest change is the density maximum. So now on any R1 low density lot, you're allowed to build 2 units as permitted uses. So that could either be in the form of a duplex, or that could be a single family home with a secondary suite or a backyard unit, or you're still allowed to just build a single family home if that's what you want. On corner lots, because corner lots typically offer a lot more access and are usually somewhat larger, and yeah, you have 2 sides that aren't abutted by other properties. This is where we thought it would be appropriate to increase the allowable number of units. And so this could be in the form of a 4-plex, it could be in the form of townhouses, it could be a duplex with a secondary suite. Going back to the original intent, it was to improve flexibility. And so by doing this, it does improve the flexibility and the type of units that can be constructed on corner lots. Next slide, please. In the R2 medium density residential district, there really weren't too many changes here, except for changing out some of the definitions that ended up getting changed, generally speaking. Per lot, the density maximum would be 8 units. But again, this isn't to say that on a current medium density lot that you would be able to build 8 units just all the time. There are other restrictions in these land use districts around setback requirements, parking requirements, building height maximums that all end up regulating specific lots to providing or allowing for an appropriate number of units. So you wouldn't get an 8-story plex that's kind of stacked on top of each other, because in the R2 district, you're only allowed to go up to, I believe it is 2 stories, with some variance within there. Next slide, please. The R3 district also didn't see too many changes, but what we did try to do is shift this towards really facilitating higher density residential. There aren't many properties in high level that are zoned R3 that are vacant. I believe there are only a handful. So what we wanted to allow and incentivize is for those properties that are already zoned high density to really leverage that and build an appropriate amount of high density units. Next slide. This should say R4, mobile home and transition neighborhood. Again, here, not too many changes because the R4 district wasn't a priority for this review, but it did end up having some general changes that applied to it. Next slide, please. Commercial and community districts, what we tried to do was still ensure that they maintain their original intent of being primarily commercial or primarily community uses, but also allowing some residential to be included within developments in these properties. And what this would allow is for developers to include your kind of commercial, your typical commercial on the bottom floor, residential above. There is examples of this type of development already within the town. And like I said, the previous land use district did allow for mixed use type buildings, but the regulations were complicated and sometimes contradictory. So all of that was cleaned up. Next slide. There were some other amendments. So we did have to add a couple sections to a couple subsections to section 5, which is kind of the general land use policies that apply to all properties. And that was to support some of the changes that we were making. And then there was one other change to signage where we included the temporary signs that are up for no more than 30 days no longer require a signage permit, as long as they still align with the land use district that they would be placed within, as well as the other policies that we have in our land use district. And what that was designed to do is really just reduce the red tape of somebody that wants to put up a sale sign for a week for their business. As it is right now, they have to come in, they have to get a development permit. Sometimes they don't realize they need a permit. They come in the day before, and our processing times, depending on what we have in the queue, may be longer than a day. So then creates challenges on them getting actually getting their permit in time for their sale. So it's a small change, but has been something we've seen needed in the community. Next slide. And this is more some general information for the public if they have any questions on kind of how land use bylaws get approved and things like that. So we can end the slides. In addition to all of this, to meet our statutory obligations as well as the requirements of our current land use bylaw, we, as administration, did advertise the bylaw through the local newspaper, the town social media, our website, and direct mail outs to all residences in the town in the form of postcards. And then further to this, administration also attended the recent high-level trade show with information on the proposed changes at a booth that people could ask questions about and answer a survey. In summary, we didn't receive any direct responses from the public through phone calls or emails, but we did have, I believe it was nearly 30 trade show attendees fill out the survey, with responses generally ranging from neutral to supportive for the proposal. And then after we generated the engagement report that is in your package, we did receive 2 virtual survey responses. One responded in favor, mostly across the board, and then the other was neutral or responded in opposition, specifically to increasing flexibility in the type of units across the town. So that wraps up my presentation. If council has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to call you Director Bartholow, Consultant Bartholow. Is there any questions of council? Seeing none, I will then ask any members of the public that want to come forward that wish to speak in favor of the bylaw. Second call for any of those that want to speak in favor of the bylaw. And third call for those that wish to speak in favor of the bylaw. Those that wish to speak against the bylaw. Second call for those that wish to speak against. Third call for those that wish to speak against the bylaw. Seeing none, and there were no written submissions, I will now close the hearing for bylaw 105125. And council will consider second and third reading during the regular council meeting. I will now open the next bylaw. This bylaw proposal, I've never had 3 bylaws in one night.
Through your worship, can I please get a motion to reconvene into open session?
Okay, can I have a motion to reconvene in open session? Councillor Lambert, all in favor? Carried. Can I now have a motion to, actually, do I need a motion to go back into the bylaw?
Through your worship, now we follow the regular open agenda.
But we have another bylaw.
Through your worship, the bylaws would be considered in the regular open agenda. I would just turn it over to the planning consultant to confirm.
Okay,
Thank you. To my knowledge, the third bylaw that's being discussed, I think it's, I'm just looking through the agenda. I don't believe it requires a public hearing
okay,
unless council wishes for one to
Okay.
be had. But yeah, I believe with that one, you can do all three readings, but that's not an item that I submitted. So maybe if one of the other members of administration could confirm, that'd be great.
Through your worship, are you referring to a land use bylaw or a different
Yeah.
bylaw?
to the land use.
Sorry, yeah, I can clarify. So bylaw 1052 and 1051, because they're related items. The
Okay.
public hearing that we just held was for both of them.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing. All right, so going into the regular council meeting, could I have an adoption of the meeting agenda again? Thank you. All in favor?
Through your worship, is there any late items, perhaps recommendation from a bursary committee?
I'd like to,
Okay, was there any late items?
I'd like to add an addition to 9.1 under committee reports.
9.1, what is it?
Under council committee reports for the town high level bursary selection.
Bursary selection? Okay. I did add the, I did add 10.1 CAO report. Was there another one? Any others? Could I have someone move to accept the agenda as amended? Councillor Lebrion, all in favor? Carried. So the adoption of the minutes, 6-1. Deputy Mayor?
There's a correction just before resolution 129-25. It says moved by Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Okay,
I'll
Thank
move the
you.
minutes with that amendment.
all in favor? Carried. I sent you my mayor's report very late. Really, the meetings that I attended were mostly business as per usual. The only interesting one is I did have a meeting with AHS and Northwestern Polytechnic, and we spent the morning together to discuss a bridging program for the RN. As many of you will recall, we have tried to do this numerous times with the University of Calgary, the University of U of A, and others. The Northwestern Polytechnic have kind of embraced it, and we discussed it as a pilot program to see how successful it would be for high level, where our LPNs would be able to bridge into an RN program. So there will be a consultation with the Dean of Health, and then they will provide a first draft to us to go through. So it sounds promising that we showed it as a pilot project, and they're a lot more interested than having to make a 5-year contract. The other was with the CRA, CN has put 510 million into infrastructure investment in Alberta. And so on our member meeting, we're actually going to invite CN to the meeting and get members of our member communities, of which there are 30, to discuss where maybe this money could go. And one of the options that we're looking at is from Manning to high level, making it a high capacity corridor. But the biggest detriment is the trestle bridge, and I don't know how much they cost. I don't know how many millions. Do you? Probably. But I mean, they were able to complete the one by Whitecourt in record time, so maybe we could get one here. So anyways, those were the two most interesting things that I had on the agenda. I see that you've added this invitation under my report. The invitation to attend the Morning Star Church grand opening. Whoever put the agenda together put it under there. Anyways, there is an invitation, it is in your package to attend this church opening. Unfortunately, I'm not available. I have my nephew's graduating and I will be attending his graduation. So is there any members of council? They're looking for somebody to speak. And it starts at 9:30 a.m. So is there any members of council that can attend?
I cannot.
If not, could we still please send our regrets to, but there's nobody available to attend. I don't know if administration is. I see they're asking for administration.
Through your worship, municipal staff will not be attending. There's usually a good reason for that separation between church and state.
Exactly.
We will send the regrets on behalf of council.
Thank you. All right, could I have someone, if there's no questions on my report, could I have someone receive it?
I'll move the mayor's report.
Thank you, Councillor Welke. All in favor? Carried. Council committee reports. Beginning with the deputy mayor.
On May 14th, I attended the Northwest Species at Risk board meeting. And then on the 21st, the Mackenzie Regional Waste Management Commission board meeting. We reviewed our audit findings report and financial statement for the year. And things are running well at the Waste Commission.
Did you get your, were you able to purchase the land for?
It's currently being leased, but we're in the process of looking at obtaining title for the expansion.
Are you going to begin that sell this year,
Yes,
the waste sell?
that's the plan, because the current one is likely going to be full by the end of the year.
All right, any questions of the deputy mayor? Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
On May 22nd, I attended a bursary committee meeting, at which time we chose the two candidates for the bursaries. Both of them were Elena Rebog and Logan McFarlane. And I think that was presented by Councillor Lambert at the whatever grad ceremony on Friday.
Okay,
And that's all I have to comment on.
okay, thank you. Councillor Lambert.
As Councillor Anderson had mentioned, we had a meeting on May 22nd, is that right? Yes? Yep. To go over the applicants for the bursary selection, and we recommended, as he said, Elena Rebong and Logan McFarlane as the recipients of the two bursaries. On Friday the 23rd, I attended the grad ceremony and spoke on behalf of the town, as well as gave out the bursaries to the two recipients. That's all I have to report.
Is that what you wanted to discuss on here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for doing that on behalf of the town. How many applicants did you have?
We had 8.
Good.
Through your worship, can I get a motion to endorse the awards, the bursary awards from council?
Does council, somebody want to make that recommendation? Councillor Lebrion, all in favor? Carried. Did you have?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Councillor Lebrion?
I attended the Mackenzie Regional Waste Commission as well on the 21st. And then I had a Peace Library System Board meeting on the 24th, where we as well went over the financials for the year. So I've had my fill this week, and that's it.
How are you financially?
Pretty good, I think. You try to follow along, right?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lebrion. Councillor Welke?
I also attended virtually, or I guess participated in the bursary selection for the high school grads. And thank you to Councillor Lambert for presenting those at the grad. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Could I have someone please move to accept council reports? Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. So under administrative reports, CAO.
Through your worship, good evening, Mayor and Council. I did not have a chance to introduce our new Director of Finance at the beginning of the meeting due to some of the technical difficulties. I have Mr. Roy Amelou sitting in the audience here. This is our new Director of Finance as of today.
Welcome to High Level.
Welcome.
And as per my report, I continue working with provincial staff to reconcile grant funding and provide updates on outstanding capital projects, as well as working with consultants to finalize the ARO report. That's a legal obligation for us to be able to finalize our audit. I also directed and collaborated with staff to expedite the mailing of our tax notices due to the potential postal strike. Collaborated with staff to prepare agendas, minutes, and follow-ups for council and committee meetings. Also coordinating logistics for council attendance at conventions and conferences. And supported senior staff in report preparation and conducted report reviews. Assisted staff to develop and establish a structured bidding process for the awarding of the Hay contract at the municipal airport. The contract was awarded on May 22nd, 2025, with James Friesen selected as the successful bidder. I'm also working with staff to facilitate the renewal of the expired leases at the municipal airport, reviewed and approved financial transactions for the corporation. Due to its manual nature, the current invoice review and payment approval process is highly time-consuming and requires a comprehensive overhaul for greater efficiency, and this revision will be led by the new Director of Finance. Also manage the upgrade of finance software and its integration with the budget system to ensure that directors have real-time, accurate budget information. So previously, the budget module was not utilized, and the systems were outdated and unintegrated, increasing the risk of errors. The new Director of Finance will oversee the final stages of implementation and conduct process reviews to optimize efficiency. Following a ratepayers concern, staff assessed hydrant flushing, flow testing, and then fire hydrant condition. So identifying 4 hydrants out of commission, 1 has been repaired, and staff are coordinating with contractors to restore the remaining 3. And during this process, they also recognize the need for a cyclical maintenance and replacement plan which will be included in the 2026 work plan. Also joined Mayor McTier in a meeting with TOCO representatives to present and discuss some key municipal initiatives, and attended the SLGM Mountain Refresher, widely regarded as the most significant training program for rural and municipal CAOs. During the event, I had the opportunity to meet a member of the board of directors, which helped expand my professional network and got a lot of good ideas for this year's election. I have overseen and managed a wide range of responsibilities over the past 2 weeks, with these tasks representing just a portion of the key initiatives undertaken to support statutory requirements, municipal operations, and community development. The new Director of Finance, starting today, will assist in meeting statutory requirements related to the 2023 and 2024 audits and associated financial information returns, as well as lead municipal finance operations from today on. Meanwhile, the Director of Corporate Services, beginning on June 9th, 2025, will support these efforts while assuming the legislative responsibilities and leading the preparations for the 2025 fall municipal election, including coordinating candidate and council training and briefings. I welcome any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Welke?
Let's see, was there any updates on meetings with commercial flight carriers at all with the town?
Yes, through your worship, yes, I did meet with one interest party. We gathered information, and we have another meeting scheduled for next month, which will probably have some more concrete information to bring, and I'll bring it back to council at that point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a question on the fire hydrants. I thought the fire hydrant flushing was done every year.
Through your worship, I cannot speak for past practices.
So how would a ratepayer know that the fire hydrants were, why was he concerned or she?
I believe there were some issues of fire in the past, and then the hydrant being out of commission for a while, and then not seeing the crews out there conducting the work.
Deputy Mayor?
So do we have any updates on the timing of the 2023 financial statement and audit?
Yeah. Through your worship, as I mentioned in my report, I continue working with provincial staff to finalize the reconciliation, and the ARO report is also a key component to this, which we're very close to finalizing.
Can we have an update from our auditor, perhaps?
I did send a message, and the auditor is waiting for this information to give me an update. So as soon as we can provide more information to the auditor, they will provide an update, which I'll bring to council as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on to 11.2, yes, we do, sorry. Could we move the CAO's report for information, please? Thank you. All in favor? Carried. The award recommendation for the Amex water treatment.
Through your worship, this I believe this is one of the projects that has been in the books, and it's currently progressing between the preliminary 30% design phase and the detailed design. So the key parameters, criteria, and assumptions have been established to guide the next stages of the development. 2 project delivery methods were evaluated by the consultant, the design, bid, build, and construction manager at risk. The town has elected to proceed with the construction manager at risk approach, as it offers several advantages in addressing the unique challenges of delivering a project in a remote location and under specific site conditions. This method enables the contractor to be actively involved during the detailed design phase, providing valuable input on constructability and helping to refine the design. It also allows for significantly more accurate cost estimates throughout the design process, enhancing project planning and risk management. Upon completion of the detailed design, the contractor will be required to submit a bid to construct the project at a guaranteed maximum price. Under the terms of the contract, the contractor assumes responsibility for any costs exceeding this agreed upon amount. The construction manager at risk contract follows a standard format developed by the Canadian Construction Documents Committee, and it is executed in 2 phases, pre-construction and construction. And once the town received the contractor's GMP proposal, it will have the option to either proceed with the awarding the construction phase under the CMAR model, or alternatively to tender the project using the traditional design bid-build approach. On February 28th, 2025, Associated Engineering, on behalf of the town, issued a request for proposals for pre-construction services for contractors expressed interest in the project, with 2 submitting qualified proposals. The submissions were received from Chandles Construction LP Edmonton and AGS Mechanical Contractors Limited, Piss River. Associated Engineering evaluated the proposals using a scoring matrix, and the results were reviewed in collaboration with town administration. Based on a thorough review by administration and the recommendation of Associated Engineer, it will be proposed to council that AGS Mechanical Contractors Limited be awarded the contract to provide the MIX water treatment pre-construction services. The next step is to award the contract for pre-construction services. Following the award, a kickoff meeting will be scheduled with the town, Associated Engineering, and the selected contractor to review project timelines, confirm key milestones, and define the contract's role during the pre-construction process. The opinion of probable cost for the project has been established at $5,714,000. This estimate was previously presented to council, and it is included in the 2025 capital budget. The province has approved funding in $3,379,299 through the Alberta Municipal Water Wastewater Partnership, with the remaining $2,336,701 to be funded by the town through a debenture. At its January 13th, 2025 regular open council meeting, council passed the following resolution: that council approve the water treatment pre-treatment upgrading project, and that council direct administration to fund on-budget project costs through a 10-year debenture. 10-year debenture. So following this resolution, the town's share of the project was incorporated into the capital budget, and a bylaw is being presented to council this evening for consideration.
So, one question, just, so Aegis may get the pre-contract, but they not necessarily get the rest of the contract?
Through your worship, it's my understanding that it will go for bid again, so it's a fair process.
Any questions? Does someone want to move an option then? Deputy Mayor?
I'll move the option that council award the pre-construction contract to Aegis Mechanical.
All in favor? Carried. So 11.3, the borrowing law, bylaw 10552025. CAO?
Through your worship, yes, this bylaw relates to the MIX project, and we provide some financial information here. The debenture funding and utility rate implications are, the cost of the debenture will be funded primarily through utility user fees. So based on a 10-year term, at the current interest rate of 3.61, the estimated annual payment is $280,457. I worked with the finance consultant to provide some numbers here per utility, the utility rate per cubic meter for council's consideration, and then I'm looking to ask council to consider giving first reading to this borrowing bylaw so we can proceed with this project.
Any questions?
I just have a question on the chart for the borrowing, the annual payment increase. So increase cubic meter water charge 49 cents. So the values under the monthly usage, is this then the increase that those users would experience? So a 15 cubic
Correct.
meter would realize an increase in $7.28 per month?
That's my understanding, through your worship.
Okay. And what's the typical residential household?
The base rate?
The 15?
Through your worship, I'll have to look into it and I can report back to council.
Okay, this is
I
just,
don't know if I'm hearing you properly.
well, I'm just trying to understand the impact on residential users and or larger users, commercial users. This is what the increase in their bill would be,
And that's for 15 cubic meters.
right?
I don't know, what's yours?
So it's 49 cents per cubic meter across the board. So it's designed to spread the cost across all users, and this is 100% cost recovery. This is a user-pay system.
Yeah.
So what is your base rate, though? How
What's a
many cubic-
typical residential user using?
3 cubes?
30 and under? Okay.
How much? Usually 30 and under. 30?
So the typical residential user would experience no more than $15 per month, basically,
With the 49-cent
increase. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. No, that's
I'm
all.
not usual because I'm only one. But Josh has
Depends on
6.
how much you like your yard.
Yeah, lots. No. Okay, so this, yes.
I'm prepared to move option one.
Okay, so option 1, that council give first reading and that there will be public advertising.
Of the project, yes.
Of the
The
debenture.
venture, yes, yes, absolutely, yes.
All right, all in favor? Carried. 11.4, replacement of community bulletin board. I lost my word.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last year, the town offered a flower grant as part of our community improvement incentive. This initiative was well received by the community. Sorry, lost my voice here. By the residents that received it. However, we did receive some feedback from community members who were unable to participate. Sorry, guys.
Okay, thank you.
So due to already purchasing flowers, or not having the documentation they needed And some people were just concerned about the limited availability of the grant, as we were only able to have 30 people receive the grant. So this year, we are proposing to go a new direction with the community improvement incentive. We're proposing that we use the funds to replace the bulletin board that is located downtown. This bulletin board serves as a community hub for local events, yard sales, and public announcements, and replacing it will benefit all the residents. It will also enhance the appearance of downtown.
Any questions of council? Is it gonna have flowers in it?
I guess what is the proposed replacement? Like just replacing the same as what it is, or is it gonna be upgraded or bigger, or?
Yeah, so the current board that is located kind of just in front of Dollar Store there, if you drive past, you will notice it is starting to tip a little bit. So Public Works had looked at getting it standing up straight again, but the legs are starting to decay, so it will need to be replaced eventually. So we can look at different things. We can look at putting like flowers in the bottom or whatever, but still something similar for people to post their garage sales, events, and that kind of stuff.
So similar, but maybe just repaired, or like a version.
Yeah,
very much
similar
the
version
same
to what it
as
is
what it
right
is.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Could I have a motion? This is coming out of council initiative, okay? Do we have any money in there? Okay,
Yes, we have $10,000 for this. So.
okay.
I'll make a motion for option 1, that council approve funding for the replacement of the town bulletin board with the expenditure to be allocated from the council initiatives budget.
All in favor? Carried. The Moose Meadows plan. Logan's gone. Or is there? Oh,
Through your worship, I'll turn it over to.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I explained most of this in the public hearing, so I won't go over it again, but you will find that in your agenda package, the attached outline plan does have the amendments that were requested. Specifically, section 1.1 contains most of those areas that are changed, but I believe there were some additional changes that were made throughout to just maintain consistency in alignment with the changes that were discussed.
is there any discussion from council? Councillor Lambert?
I just have a question for CEO Azels, if he's available. Yeah, so just a question for, I guess, for future reference, or, you know, when we had talked about this during the committee of whole, I had asked about, you know, with the potential vulnerable people that would be in there. I brought up the concern about, you know, security and if it was an issue. I think Councillor Welke also brought up the same concern, is that, you know, even though there is going to be like the relatively low risk from what we understand, and you said there's no difference from them being on these properties versus them being at any other house in town. And I had brought up the fact that, well, there might not be, you know, there's this one place, like, you know, anywhere in town that have the access to the same resources, but then when they're here, everyone knows that they're there, right? So that like there's just access to them a lot easier. It was brought to my attention that there are some empty homes or lots in town that the nation does own. Is there any talk about developing those, or remodeling them, upgrading them, or renovating them to offer the similar housing needs at maybe possibly even a lower cost? I understand the funding for this is probably specifically for this project, but I'm just wondering if there's a chance that we can renovate some of the homes that are in town owned by the nation that are deserted at the moment.
Do you want to come
Yes.
to the table?
Denny Daw, sorry. Okay. Fair enough.
I think those are the ones that were the old INAC buildings, kind of by the,
Yes.
yeah, the one right across the street here and then down the middle of the street.
From what I understand, there's a few of them in town, and like I said, a few of them are deserted and could be, you know, potentials for that. So I just wanted to know if that was a potential option for
I don't think those have been designated to a Denethor yet. I think that's still going through a process. I think they're still held by the federal government. They were given in trust to North Peace, I think, and then there's still negotiation going on about those lands themselves.
Okay.
I don't think they've been transferred to the nation yet.
Okay,
But if they do, then absolutely.
awesome, that's what I want to hear, thank you.
Some of them belong, well, from my understanding, some belong to Little Red.
Yeah, there's been
Yeah.
a bit of disagreement about who owns
Okay.
what, so yeah, that's being,
And
like I said,
as
negotiated.
we fight over them, they deteriorate and
Yeah.
become unusable. So, yeah, I just, like, I know that there's an angst about, the project, just because they do come with some problems. And as Councillor Lambert states, everybody knows that they're transition, or will know, that it's transitional housing. But I want to reiterate to, council that many of the clients that are in the, women's shelter in High Level come out into our social housing, and it's kind of used as transitional housing. So that's where many of them go if they don't go back to their families or back to their people. So,
Yeah, and I can't speak to the programming because I'm not on the Denethor side of the administration, but we did talk, like, there will be on-site security, and there was talk about supporting and doing rounds from that base in Bushy. Once the women's shelter is operational, that security would then every so often go through the community and back. So there is going to be that option as well.
thank you. Any other questions? Could I have a motion then for second reading? Could I have someone move?
Sorry, this item is just for the approval of the outline plan, which can be
Oh,
done
sorry.
through resolution.
Oh my God. Okay, could I have a motion for the approval of the plan then?
I'll move.
Okay, Councillor Lambert, all in favor? Carried. So on to bylaw 105-325, which is to establish direct control. Is there any questions on that? Can I have someone move second reading then, please? That's the one I was looking at.
I'll move second reading, Madam Mayor.
All in favor of second reading? Could I have someone move unanimous consent? Are you sure?
Because you can do two in one night.
I know we're not doing all three, but I think we still need it. CAO?
Through your worship, the deputy mayor is correct.
Okay. Okay, third reading, move third reading. Counselor Lambert, all in favor? Carried. The repeal to 105-125, making housing easier. Could I have someone move, or is there any questions, first of all, sorry? Any discussion? Yeah.
I'll move second reading.
All in favor? Carried. Is there somebody to move third reading? All in favor? Carried. What?
You didn't acknowledge that it was council.
Oh, sorry. Bylaw
Just for the note takers.
105225, the Municipal Development Plan Amendment. Does someone want to move second reading if there's no questions? Councillor Lambert, all in favor? Does somebody want to move third reading?
I'll move third reading, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Welke. All in favor? Carried. I'm getting my tiny home. All right, moving on to old business, seeing none, correspondence for action, none. Correspondence for information, is there any of those that council wishes to discuss? Or could I have someone accept for information? Councillor Lambert, all in favor? Carried. Is there any questions? Seeing none, can I move for adjournment, please? Councillor Librion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you for attending our meeting this evening.
No one camera time today?
None.